No one really talks about this, but being the quiet one actually comes at a cost. And it's not just about being shy or not talking a lot. It actually affects how you see yourself over time. Hi, friends. I'm Mary Beth. Welcome to Peace in Progress. So maybe you've been labeled the quiet one. It usually starts pretty early, sometimes when you go to school, or if you're part of a large family, maybe you're always called the quiet one. For me, it definitely started when I went to school, and I just wasn't the kind of kid who wanted to raise my hand and give my opinion. And I think I actually tried to kind of hide in the back of the room so I wouldn't be called on. And it's not because I didn't know the answer or I didn't want to share. It's just that I was just more nervous about my opinions. So I became known as the quiet one. But early on, you start to realize people treat you differently because you're quiet. And I'm also shy, so there's that too. I think most quiet people are also shy. And people treat you differently because you're quiet. They feel the need to ask you, why aren't you talking? What's wrong? They usually think something's wrong because you aren't talking. Or, like I said earlier, they think you're not paying attention, you're not engaged, you're not having fun, you're not joining in. When really you're doing most of those things, you're just doing it more in your head than out loud. And people also can think you're unfriendly or antisocial. I've gotten that one a lot. And it doesn't help that my resting face looks kind of sad. I don't know, my resting face doesn't have like a smile to it. So if I'm not talking much and I'm kind of hiding and my face doesn't look friendly, I get labeled as either unfriendly or snob. Especially in high school, a lot of people thought I was a snob because I didn't just talk to everybody, put myself out there. So when I was in high school, I had a close group of just 2 or 3 friends. And when we would join up with other people, like, 8 or 10 people, I always got overwhelmed. I just liked it when it was just our little group. I felt more comfortable that way. Generally, quiet people gravitate towards other quiet people. So my friends were very similar to me, and that made it a lot easier. But a lot of times in social situations, I feel like I have to turn on my personality. Like I have to go out of my way to engage with people. And you know what that means? Small talk, which I really dislike. And for me, if I'm talking to somebody like at a party or something, like I go to so many parties, but you do a little bit of the small talk and then the conversation kind of ends, and I'm okay with that. I know it makes other people uncomfortable. They feel like those silences are awkward and we need to fill up this space with talking, and I just don't feel that way. So I just kind of finish the conversation and that's it. That can be uncomfortable for some people. And it's the same in work settings because the quiet people usually are the ones who are kind of staying back and listening and formulating. We formulate our plans in our head instead of saying it all out loud. So people might think we're not really engaged, we aren't interested, we aren't participating. That has a negative connotation, especially in a work situation. It really is harder for quiet people to be heard and make it known that we are thinking and we are working on what we're supposed to be doing. So, of course, these social interactions and work interactions lead to overthinking. So, if I'm trying to turn it on and make myself talk more, it's going to be fake. It's not going to be real. And it's going to make me feel uncomfortable and get burned out. That will really lead to social burnout quickly if you feel like you have to be talking, you have to be engaging in the small talk just so that you're part of the group, so people don't think you're antisocial. And it also leads to a lot of overthinking because you're going to look back on those dumb things that you said because you weren't really being yourself. You might have the tendency to say things that are kind of awkward and dumb because you're just not used to that kind of, those kind of conversations, which can also lead to comparison. I know a lot of times I just think, why can't I be more like that? Why can't I be the person in the room who can just easily talk to everybody? They put you at ease. They make you feel like you're the most important person in the room. I want to be that kind of person, but I know that it just isn't natural for me. I'm sure it's something I could work on, but I don't know if I want it that badly. This is my natural way of being, and it's when I feel the most comfortable. It's those small group settings that are easiest for me, and I like to stay in those. I keep myself in places where I feel comfortable. And I think, over my lifetime, there have been many times when I wished I could be something else. I wished I could be more outgoing, more talkative, easy to talk to. But if you kind of reframe it and think being quiet doesn't mean you're weak, doesn't mean you're anything negative. It just means that that's how you are. So I finally realized trying to be something that you're not, that's not the way to do it. Maybe it's something you could work on being able to have small talk a little better, or how to get your ideas heard in a meeting. But otherwise, being quiet isn't a weakness. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. And it doesn't mean that you're less. It doesn't mean that you're not as good of a person as people who are talkative, people who are loud. And I've had a lot of people over the years tell me that by me being more quiet, that I was seen as mysterious and more interesting, and kind of like, they wanted to get to know me, but they were a little intimidated. And it's not necessarily that you want to be intimidating, but I always think it's interesting how people view me as compared to how I thought of myself. So the things that I thought were weird about me or awkward or uncomfortable actually may have been viewed as mysterious and intriguing and making other people want to get to know me. And I just think that's really interesting because the people that I am close to, like my close friends, they know a lot about me because I feel comfortable enough, and I can be very talkative when I feel comfortable with people. So it's not like something's wrong with me that I can't carry on a conversation. It's just those social situations with people I don't know very well, and everyone's being loud and everyone's talking. Yeah, I just want to duck out of that and stick to smaller groups of people that I'm comfortable with. And at the age I am now, I feel like I don't need to put myself into situations where I'm not comfortable. I don't like to go to big parties. I don't like to go places where I'm going to be one of a large crowd of people. I'm just not comfortable that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. So maybe the cost really isn't being quiet. Maybe it's believing that quiet makes you less. So it's more about what you think, not really what other people think. So embrace your quietness, embrace your mystery, make people wonder about you. I think it's a lot more interesting that way. So let me know in the comments. Do you think of yourself as a quiet person? How do you use that as like your superpower? And as always, take care of yourself, and I hope to see you next time.